Turner Smith woke up on his 18th birthday with a massive headache. In fact, he wasn't even the one who woke himself up. It was his older brother, Ryan Smith, who shook him until he groggily opened his eyes. "Go away," Turner groaned. The morning light spilling into their shared room blinded him temporarily, forcing him to shut his eyes. 5 more minutes. Ryan paused. When Turner squinted in the bright sunlight, geez, why was it so bright? Was it noon already? He saw the disappointed frown on his brother's face. He held out a hand and Ryan grasped it, pulling him up to sitting. Turner hissed and held his head as it throbbed, his vision swimming in and out of the darkness. "You were out drinking again," Ryan said. He stood from Turner's bunk and crossed his arms. There was no malice or frustration in his tone, just disappointment. He sighed. "Get up. Dad wants us to let the sheep out before breakfast." Breakfast? Turner squinted again. Now that his head was clearer, he realized it was barely dawn. It was his hangover making him feel like garbage. As he turned away, Turner, who had barely heard him, groaned again. Jerk. It made a lot of sense, though. He couldn't recall a single moment of what happened last night after his friend, Wallace, had dragged him to the pub for the umpteenth time. Because why not? It was infinitely better than staying at home with goody-two-shoes Ryan. But seriously, why did alcohol have to give him hangovers? If only they didn't. Then he could actually be sober when he got his well-earned money and his ticket out of this miserable farm. The reminder of his inheritance brought back a rush of excitement, and his headache seemed to clear for a moment. That's right, it was his birthday today. He was officially an adult now. Dad would give him his inheritance and he could leave for the city nearby and actually live without having to do hard back-breaking work all day. Jumping out of bed, he rushed to get ready. After letting the sheep out, more accurately, after watching Ryan let the sheep out, Turner didn't even get to sit down at the dining table next to Ryan when he was attacked by his mother. "Turner, oh my sweet boy, happy birthday," Janet Smith cried, enveloping Turner in a bear hug. Even now that he was half a head taller than her, he still couldn't escape from her arms. She ruffled his hair, ignoring the way Turner was whining in complaint. "I can't believe it. Both my boys are healthy, proud adults. It feels like it was just yesterday you were both in your cradles." When she let go, Turner was stunned to see tears streaming from her eyes. She sniffed and wiped her face with a handkerchief. "Ma," Turner grabbed it from her hands and helped wipe the tears away. "Come on, don't cry." Now, Turner loved his mother. He loved his father as well, but he didn't like their farm, their lifestyle, and the work. The work, especially. For some odd reason, they refused to budge when he suggested moving into the city during long drought or harsh weather. He didn't understand. It wasn't as if they were stuck here by some ancestral roots. They were staying completely out of their own will. He couldn't understand and he couldn't handle it. That's why he was going to move to the city as soon as he could. "Now, I know you're going to move to the city," his mother started, "so listen to me." Oh, no, Turner thought. Not this again. For the past few days, he'd been bombarded with countless warnings, suggestions, precautions, and attempts to dissuade him from moving. All of it had gone inside one ear and out the other. Why should he listen? He made up his mind and he wouldn't be swayed from it. Those warnings were completely unwarranted as well. Come on, who would believe there were people on the streets who could steal your entire allowance just by bumping into you? He planned to live his life in the city. Nothing would stop him from doing that. Ma, Turner said quickly, I told you I will be fine. I'm an adult now, remember? You're still a child to me. Janet, you know he's not going to listen. His dad had entered the room at some point. Instead of sitting down, however, he had an envelope in his hand. Flint Smith walked over to Turner and Janet, and, looking between his wife and son, sighed. Turner, is there really no way we could convince you to... Nope, he cut his father off. I'm going to the city and I'll become richer than rich. Don't worry, Ma, Dad. His parents exchanged a sad look. Turner hated that, but he didn't want to say it out loud. He still wanted his inheritance, after all. His father sat down at the head of the table, setting the envelope down beside him. I'll give it to you after breakfast. Then we can't stop you from doing what you want. True to his word, as always, his father, with fear in his eyes and uncertainty in his farewell, gave Turner his inheritance. Turner briefly hugged his mother and father, and even his brother, before leaving the farm with his personal belongings, starting off toward the city. Along the way, Wallace stood in their rendezvous point. Wallace was this tall guy, even taller than Ryan, with brown skin similar to Turner's, black hair, and brown eyes. He grinned as he saw Turner walking down the gravel road, but instead of being alone like Turner thought he would be, he was with 3 others, all of whom, like Wallace, were a year or 2 older than him. One had darker skin with black hair, the other 2 had tan and pale skins with blonde and brown hair respectively. It stopped him in his tracks for a moment. He had never seen such a diverse group of people in the same place at the same time, even in the pub. Then his friend waved. Hey, would you look at that? It's the man, the myth, the legend, Turner Smith. Turner cracked a grin and picked up his pace, running to the older boy. Well, he was an adult, but they'd been friends since they were small. Wallace had been a wild kid, same as Turner, and he'd gotten his inheritance 2 years ago before moving to the city, just as Turner was doing now. It was safe to say that Turner saw him as the older brother he wished he had, and a role model. Wallace is doing good in the city, he thought, and I learned a lot from him, so why wouldn't I? Dad and Mom were being dramatic. Hey there, Wallace, Turner greeted. I'm surprised you didn't sleep until noon for once. Aren't you hungover at all? He shrugged. Somewhat, but better than you? Heck yeah. Man, you were going crazy on the whiskey yesterday. Do you remember what happened? Ryan had to carry you back like a sack of potatoes. Nope. Turner looked at the other 3 people. And who are they? Your friends? Oh, right. Wallace turned to them. He slung an arm around Turner's shoulders. Guys, this is Turner Smith. It's his 18th birthday and he just got fat money from the inheritance he gained. So we're going to help him succeed. Turner grinned at them and raised a hand. At least he was either taller or the same height as them, unlike Wallace, who was just born taller. Hello. The pale-skinned brunette grinned as well and held out a hand, which Turner shook. Hey there, Turner. I'm Gilbert. Juliet? The blonde said, nodding. She didn't offer anything else, not even a friendly expression. Godwin, the dark-skinned girl introduced herself last. She smiled good-heartedly and shook his hand as well. We'll guide you through city living. We did a good job with Wallace at any rate. Said person chuckled. Indeed, Godwin, and I trust you won't fail Turner either. He's a better learner than I. Turner snorted. Oh, please, and who taught me all that I know these past few years? Still, I'm flattered. Wallace, his arm around his shoulders, started toward the city. The late morning sun beat down on them as they walked. "Well, first, let's get you to the city and get you settled in our apartment. Then, to celebrate your birthday, I'll introduce you to the best bar in town. And if we have time, we can also go to the casino." The next year was a blur. It felt short, yet so many things happened. Turner collapsed on the stool in the bar one afternoon, 11 months and 17 days after his 18th birthday. He held up a hand and called to the bartender, "A whiskey, please." For the first 6 months of those 11 months, he'd worked his butt off, running errands and helping with odd tasks here and there. He had to earn money, after all. His inheritance was great, but it wasn't nearly enough to support one's living for any long period of time. Every other night, he went to this exact bar and ordered 6 shots of whiskey. It burned his throat as he swallowed and made his head cloudy and fuzzy. It made his arms feel sluggish and weak, but it helped. It helped him not think. City living was great. At least he thought it was. It was messy, unorganized, stressful, and frankly depressing. But he knew it would look up, surely. He just had to hold out until he got enough money and start his own business or go to college or find somewhere stable to work at. Probably the latter. Going to college sounded like a hassle, and starting his business was too complicated. It wasn't realistic as well, as he found later. He was working hard. Surely that counted for something. He downed his first shot of the night. Another. The bartender leaned across the counter. Turner was pushing the empty glass toward him before he realized that he wasn't going to refill it. Caro, the bartender and owner, was frowning. 2 things. 1, you're here earlier than usual. His tone wasn't full of malice or frustration. It was more like disappointment. Turner scowled, not because he was annoyed. No, he rather liked Caro, but rather because that tone was strikingly familiar to Ryan's. "Why should you care?" "And 2, Caro continued, disregarding that statement, "you're neck deep in debt. I'm not serving someone who can't pay." Honestly, Turner wasn't sure if that was out of concern for him or for his own wages. His elbows on the counter, he dropped his face into the palms of his hands. He made a noise between a groan and a sigh. Answer me, why should you care?" With a straight face, he said, "You're a customer who has been here more often in 1 year than my customers who have been here for 3. Turner had picked up the glass again, out of pure habit, only to find it was still empty. He felt his stomach drop as despair, once again, filled him. "God, just refill, please." He rubbed his temples. City living was great, only when it wasn't horrible. During his first 6 months, in an attempt to try investing by suggestion of Wallace, he got scammed 3 out of 4 times. His inheritance dwindled to almost nothing, and the only thing preventing him from sleeping on the streets was the support of Wallace and his friends. He worked all sorts of odd jobs to make ends meet, and went to the bar every other night. He ordered 6 shots of whiskey, because it was the cheapest, and at the end of the night, Wallace would come and drag him back to the apartment. He was pickpocketed 7 times and ate 1 meal a day for 2 months, because even when sharing an apartment, he had to support his own needs. He could feel himself becoming gaunt, weak, and fatigued. His only salvation was when he came to the bar and drank himself to oblivion. His head would be empty of thoughts and he could rest in the quiet for once. 6 months into the 18th year of life, 6 whiskeys weren't enough. His tolerance was high to begin with, but after 6 months, even 6 shots weren't enough to get him completely drunk. It rose to 7, then 8, 2 months later, and now it was 9. But after being scammed yet another time and rejected from 17 jobs, he was several $1,000s in debt, and without a real job and no one willing to work with an alcoholic, even if it had been a few $100s, he wouldn't be able to pay it back. Turner was surprised he managed to hold on for this long. He didn't have a cent to his name, and he could feel his mind spiraling every day, every second and moment. In order to survive, he needed money. In order to earn money, he needed to work. In order to work, he needed to survive by himself. It was a big, giant, pointless circle. He didn't have anything. He talked 2 words to his roommates in the last month, and no one cared about him to help him. 6 weeks ago, he'd woken up in the bar with cramps in places he didn't know he could get cramps. Even Wallace had stopped dragging him home, if he could even call that tiny, fusty apartment home. No, it wasn't home. No one there cared about him. They sure looked like it. They smiled, they waved, and they shared jokes, but they didn't, and he knew they didn't. To begin with, they didn't care about him as a person. They didn't care about anyone in their own friend group as a person. They only saw each other as opportunities to lessen their own lives and their own suffering, to pay rent and possibly share money and food. Turner made the mistake of using his own money to help them, believing it was to repay them for helping him. He only had himself to blame, especially since, as he found out later, that he had helped them 10 times more than they had him, and it hadn't even been with his consent. Caro shook his head, and Turner realized he'd been spacing out. It'd only been seconds, but he found that, even with a shot of whiskey, time seemed to slow down when he was spiraling. No more shots for you. He snatched the glass from Turner, who wasn't even holding it tightly to begin with. Before he turned away, though, he looked back at Turner again. And that friend of yours, Wallace, I advise you to stay away from him. If it had been a year ago, or even 6 months ago, Turner would have shouted at Caro. He would have told him very firmly that Wallace was his friend, that he wasn't that kind of person. He would have left the bar and never came back, good whiskey or not. If he had been drunk, he would have smashed a few things too. But now, Turner just scoffed, because he knew all too well about Wallace, more specifically, what he'd done. He should have suspected something sooner, too. There had been an endless amount of clues and hints. He was an idiot and a fool to have missed them all. Who was it that suggested he come to live in the city? Wallace. Who was it that invited him to live in that tiny rundown apartment where he'd slept on the couch for the last 11 months, despite being the one who helped his 4 roommates the most? Wallace. Who was it that suggested he looked into investing? Wallace. Who was it that introduced him to the people who he invested in, only to be scammed? Wallace. Who was the one who acted all kind and responsible and pretended to insist that he didn't need the money Turner was offering him after he gambled away his own? Wallace. Who was it that had set those investors up to scam him, encouraged him to drink every night, prevented him from working, leaving the apartment and dying, just to be nice while reaping the benefits of manipulating him? Wallace. Who was the one person in the whole world that, for all of Turner's life up until recently, was like a brother he wished he had and a role model he looked up to? Wallace. City living was great. Except it was not. Clinging on to that idea was no use either. For the first time since coming to the city, Turner realized that he had made the worst decision of his life when he left his home. His real home. His real home in the middle of the fields, with the sound of roosters waking him up in the morning, the warm sunlight pouring through the windows, and the stars that shone brightly at night. His home with the embrace of his loving mother, and the stern but affectionate attitude of his father, and Ryan, his brother, his real brother, who pretended not to care, only to wake him up on time every morning, and taught him how to harvest, how to care for the animals, how to clean the house, how to defend himself, and how to deal with emergencies. He helped him when their parents fought and yelled at each other for days straight, taking him outside to avoid a scene. He helped lessen the pain when their shepherd dog died of old age. He was there years later when he neglected their family work and went to the pub every week, drinking until he passed out. He would carry Turner back to their home every night, walking 3 miles in the teeth-chattering cold. Ryan never looked it, but he had always cared. Ryan was his real brother. In the present, in the bar on the edge of the city, Turner stood from his stool. His legs wobbled and his head felt too heavy for his neck, but he looked straight and walked out of the bar, sober, for the first time in his life. He was going to do something right. He had to. Driven by his intense urge to go home, he made a decision. He would get rid of his debt, and as soon as he could, he would head back home. He would ignore Wallace and his friends, and he would not contact them. He wouldn't listen to another word out of Wallace's mouth again. Oh, and he was never, ever going to touch alcohol again for the rest of his life. 2 years, 1 month, and 26 days after his 18th birthday, Turner Smith stared at his front door in the early morning light. It was barely dawn, and the stars were still out. It was also eerily quiet. After so much time and so many agonizing days in the city, he'd gotten used to the noise of the streets. But out here, it was quiet, apart from the barking of a dog somewhere, which he automatically blocked out due to hearing it every day, all day, in the city. He predicted Ryan would be awake and ready by now. His parents were probably still asleep, but would wake up anytime soon. He'd paid off all his debts 2 days ago, after finally getting 2 separate jobs, though they both paid barely enough to survive, let alone pay off the debts. He'd somehow managed, however. Wallace made several attempts to scam him again, as Turner never gave him enough of his attention to tell him that he knew he had been manipulating him. He never fell for it, however. It took 13 job rejections in the span of 6 weeks before he found his 2 jobs. He'd been sleeping on a cheap mattress in the living room of an apartment for 4 months before Caro, who he still met with occasionally, despite making him vow to never drink again, offered to room with him. So, for the rest of his time in the city, he slept on a cheap mattress in the guest room of Caro's apartment. He made attempts to be good. He tried to help people where he could and was cautious around those who tried to scam him. He learned what to expect, how to adapt and adjust, and he found ways to survive even in the worst times. And now, his debt finally paid, and his friendship with Wallace fully cut off, he was free. And now that he was free, he could finally come home. He could finally return to his real home, somewhere he should never have left. But now that he was standing in front of the door, he wondered if they would even want to see him again. 2 years, 1 month, and 26 days had gone by. He hadn't sent a single letter because at first he didn't want to, and later he didn't have the money or time to. Nor had he received anything from them. He couldn't blame them if they told him to leave, to go back to the city where he'd claimed was so great. He knew it was shameless to run off eagerly the first day of his adulthood, only to come crawling back 2 years later, his inheritance gone and almost nothing to his name. Just as the doubt was gnawing at his brain, however, the door opened. "All right, Dad, I'm going to check on Ozzy." She was probably spooked by a rat again, like always. Or the cat came back and... Ryan Smith stared at Turner, wide-eyed. Turner stared back. Right, what was he supposed to say? What was he going to say? Seeing that expression on Ryan's face, however, Turner guessed that he was welcome back. But if only he could just say something. "Ryan?" Flint Smith's voice came from deeper inside the house. "What is it?" Turner was just about to back off and walk away when Ryan, still taller than him, grabbed his brother and pulled him in for a hug. It was the warmest, longest hug he'd ever gotten from Ryan. It was also the fiercest. "Ryan?" This time it was Janet Smith who called. It was as if she knew something was up. Turner, eyes still wide, saw over his brother's shoulder as she entered the living room. "Are you..." she gasped. "Turner!" He could only nod and choked out, "Ma and Ryan." There was a crash in the kitchen, and their father came running in. "Turner?" He didn't even get a proper look at him before rushing forward to embrace the two brothers. His wife followed. Turner struggled not to cry. "Dad, I'm back." "I can see that," Ryan muttered. He let go first, and looking awkward, he looked up at Flint. "Dad, should we... the cow?" Flint nodded. "Yes, go, do it." Turner frowned. What? What cow? What do you mean?" Janet smiled, pulling back. "Oh, my dear boy, you don't have to worry about anything. Just go to your room. We've kept it the way it was and washed the blankets every month. Go sleep. You must have walked all the way here by yourself, huh?" "Wait, what do you mean, cow?" Turner asked again. "And also, I can work. I regret what I did 2 years ago. I'm sorry. I was stupid and a fool. I'll go help Ryan right now, actually." Flint pushed him gently toward his own room. No, go. We're having beef for dinner, and it wouldn't be for you if you helped prepare it." That made Turner freeze on the spot. "What?" "To celebrate, son." As Flint turned to go, he grabbed his father's arm. "Wait, Dad, I don't get it. I left you, and now I'm crawling back to you. You should be saying I told you so or something." "City slang, I'm assuming," Janet said, eyes sparkling. "Well, we're not going to say that." "So why are we having beef? At most, we used to have chickens and sold our lamb and beef." Flint smiled. "Because, Turner, we're celebrating. It's a tradition in our family to celebrate the birth of our children. And while you may have already been born," he patted Turner's head, "after what you've been through in the city, after you chose to come back to us, you have been essentially reborn. You are a new man now. That is what we're celebrating."